Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. You're listening to our D&D game. I'm your host, the Dungeon Master, or DM for short. And today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite adventures that I ran during the Arthurian period. And that was the one with the dragons of Mechanus. Um, at any rate, instead of me telling you about it up front, let's just dive in and you can hear it as it goes. So the prologue is 425 AD. Tristram comes from Brittany and fights Marhaus, killing him but being wounded in the process. He is sent to Ireland for healing. The main plot then of this one takes place in 428 AD. The still nameless Lancelot rides out from the Lady in the Lake's realm until he encounters the quote unquote best knight in the world. When he defeats him, a fairy servant of the lady tells him his true name. Lancelot then journeys to Camelot, where some of the other knights have just returned from the plain of Mechanus. The diplomats from Mechanus are similar to Warforged, but their origins are much different. They are intelligent machines who can think and feel. One of them is golden colored and dragon shaped. It is a druid, so it can assume the shape of objects, not animals. So it becomes a shield for Arthur to use. When it's in its shield mode, it resembles a normal metal shield with a gold dragon design on the front. Watching the interactions between the diplomats from Mechanus and Arthur and his men is a small red and black dragon named Lazarus Rostrum. It returns to Mechanus and tells a huge silver dragon named Magnus Tyrannus all about Earth. So Tyrannus leads a group of these clockwork dragons to Camelot. There's a red and silver dragon named Astrum Stridor. There are two blue and silver dragons named Tonatris Chasma and Sanus Procella. And finally, there's a black and purple one named Calum Pervorsio, who is capable of interplanar travel. So he transports them all from Mechanus to Earth. The leader of the Clockwork Druids is Prelatus Unis. He shapeshifts into a dragon that is the same size as Magnus Tyrannus, and those two square off. Sanus Procella, one of the blue and silver dragons, has shield devices of his own. Just as Arthur's shield is a gold dragon, Sanus has a black shield that turns into a clockwork displacer beast. He sicks it on Arthur, but thankfully, Excalibur's scabbard protects Arthur from harm. The clockwork displacer beast tries to maul Arthur to no avail. Lancelot steps in to lend a hand, and this could have been the moment where he and Arthur became friends. But instead, the arrogant Lancelot says, "Let me show you how this is done." So Arthur has a bad opinion of Lance from the start. Arthur activates his own shield device, which transforms into a gold dragon. It attacks the displacer beast. Sanus Procella turns two more clockwork druids loose. One is red, one is blue. They are both medium-sized opponents. The rest of Arthur's knights fight them. Throughout the fight, the druids use their shapeshifting to turn into various objects like carts and trebuchets. Astrum Stridor calls for a retreat, so Calum Pervorsio transports the invaders back to Mechanus. Prelatus Unis says his clockwork druids are needed back home. But he leaves the gold dragon with Arthur and says he hopes their two people will forge a strong bond in the years to come. Once the visitors have left, Lancelot tells everyone that he did the best in the fight and that he is better than everybody else. He also comments on how hot he thinks the queen is. So it's safe to say at this point in the campaign, everybody hates Lancelot. The epilogue takes place in 429 AD. Lancelot, still not a companion, leaves on an adventure. A search is begun for him. When he returns, Lancelot becomes a full member of the Round Table and wins the allegiance of Duke Galeholt. Guinevere's identical sister successfully takes Guinevere's place and convinces Arthur that the other Guinevere is an impostor. Lancelot renounces his allegiance to Arthur to defend one of the Guineveres in trial by combat. The Guinevere that is smitten with Lancelot is sent to Surlos in exile. Lancelot and that unfaithful Guinevere live in Duke Galeholt's castle. And this is the moment that Britain begins to decline. Sorry, I got a little tongue-tied there at the end. This was an interesting adventure. I guess the first thing I will say is Josh Boggs played Lancelot. We urged him to do a little research into the character. I don't know if he did or not, but I would be very surprised if he did. I feel like Josh hates reading more than like anything else in the world. And like the various games that we play, he'll play a game literally for 30 years or something and never learn the rules to the game. You know, he'll play a game a million times and then come over for a game session and say, "How do you roll initiative again?" So, so I'd be very surprised if he had researched Lancelot at all. He just made the decision for whatever reason out the door to play him like he did, you know? And we had thought of different ways we could spin it, but in the, you know, at the end of the day, that's how it went down. Um, the other big one in this is when I ran this, I can't remember where I got the idea from now. It wasn't my idea, the idea of the like Warforged Druids, where instead of having the ability to turn into various animals, they would turn into things. I read that in like um maybe Dragon magazine. I'm not sure now, but somebody else came up with the idea, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's genius. And I just thought it was so cool that, you know, whereas a druid is usually a mammal, right? Most of them are. So therefore, they can turn into life forms. You know what I mean? I just thought it was really, really cool to have the idea of a druid that is a construct basically can turn into other constructs. So pretty much as soon as I heard that, we put it in the game right away. And a big reason for that is Arthur's shield. Um, Arthur's character sheet can be found in Deities and Demigods. And we have always been confused by his shield. Most of the stuff there, we read it, and it's I can't remember now if that's first edition or second edition. I want to say first, actually. Um, but you're reading the various stuff it says about Arthur, and we can kind of translate it to a more modern edition in our mind as we go. But then you get to his shield, and it says it's a shield device. And like we all tried to Google it and stuff, nobody found anything. We asked guys who'd been playing D&D since the 70s, you know, hey, what's the deal with this? None of them knew, you know. Which by the way, if you know the correct answer, by all means, put it in the comments section. I'd love to hear it. But at any rate, so we read it and we're really confused by the entry, and we're like, so it's a device. So we're thinking it's a construct, but somehow it can transform into a gold dragon. And we're like, well, that's cool that the gold dragons are like the main good guy dragons, right? And Arthur being King Arthur, right? We get it. We're like, that's cool that he has this companion that's a gold dragon, but it's a device, and like we couldn't really wrap our head around what that looked like. And I remember Josh, who I mentioned played Lancelot, he was a really big fan of Visionaries, which was an old cartoon in the 1980s. I believe it was made by the same people who did like Transformers and G.I. Joe. And on Visionaries, they would have shields and stuff like that. And the toys came like there'd be a sticker on their shield. Um, like they had multiple stuff with these stickers on it. And if you're of a certain age, you know what I'm talking about. But the idea was if you would have the action figure in your hand and you'd kind of turn it back and forth, the sticker was a hologram, quote unquote hologram sticker. And they had these different beasts. So like one guy had like a bear, and I think there was a girl with like a dolphin and so on and so forth. And they were supposed to be some kind of totem thing. But at any rate, on the show, what would happen is it was kind of like the Green Lantern in a way, where it would be like a glowing green um shark or something would come out of a shield, and it would fly around and be made of energy, and it would eat people and so on and so forth. And so I remember Josh was really gunning for us to do the shield that way. Uh, and I was like, I don't know, that just doesn't seem very Dungeons and Dragons, you know what I mean? Um, so yeah, we went with the more Clockwork route. Um, and then that was really cool too, because I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But then some of them later on, because the other thing was in some of the more recent Zelda video games, they give Link a motorcycle. In Breath of the Wild, for instance, there's a downloadable uh, thing. I can't remember what it's called now. DLC, right? Downloadable content. There's a DLC that they put out where he gets a bike, and it's pretty cool. Especially because you have to do like you can't just use it right away either. You have to kind of earn it. But so you by default have been forced to play the game quite a bit and realize how long it takes to get from one side of Hyrule to the other, right? And so then when they give them the bike, you're just going so fast. You're like, wow, this is amazing. It's way faster than your horse is, and so on and so forth. Um, so this bike is just awesome. And my kids were really, really into Breath of the Wild when it came out. Um, so we put a similar bike into D&D. And of course, between all the elves and tinker gnomes and stuff like that, we're doing some spelljammer stuff. We thought it was right at home. But at any rate, so Arthur's golden dragon, his shield dragon, was then like we couldn't help but see the Transformers parallel, right? How in the Transformers movies, sometimes a Transformer will like scan an object and then it can turn into that object, right? So basically, that's what the Druid thing did. His shield dragon uh, looked at the bike and then figured out how to turn into a bike. So then Arthur had like a gold motorcycle kind of thing with like a dragon, because Link's bike has like a horse head up front. So anyway, Arthur's has like a gold dragon head up front. We just thought that was a really cool visual. Um, but yeah, we really enjoyed this one a lot. I hope that you enjoyed hearing about it. Um, yeah, if anybody knows how the shield device is supposed to work in Deities and Demigods, let me know in the comments section. I'd be very curious about that. But yeah, I think that's it for this one. Be sure to hit like, subscribe, ring the bell, all that jazz, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.